I never imagined that my only daughter would be capable of selling our own home to travel with her boyfriend, just for show. And what made me forgive her? The bigger surprise was hers. I was born and raised in Chicago, and from a young age, I learned that life can change in the blink of an eye. I was 25 years old when my husband John left us. At the time, I was alone with a young daughter, Emily, to raise. Those were difficult years, but I refused to let her see my pain. I worked tirelessly, sometimes at 2 jobs, to ensure she had everything she needed. My intention was good, but maybe I overdid it, making all her wishes come true and never saying no. "Emily, come here, please," I'd call out, trying to hide the exhaustion in my voice after a long day of work. "Yes, Mom," she'd respond with a smile, expecting me to have brought something for her. Even when it was hard, I always brought something. A toy, a treat, anything that could make her eyes light up with joy. "Look what I brought for you today," I'd say, handing over the gift. She'd open the package with enthusiasm, and that moment of her happiness was what motivated me to keep going. However, over time, I began to realize I was raising a girl who didn't know how to handle the word no. She always expected things to go her way, and I, wanting to compensate for her father's absence, would give in. "Mom, I want that dress in the store window," she'd say, pointing to an expensive dress in a downtown store. "Emily, we can't buy that dress now. It's too expensive," I'd try to explain. "But Mom, I want it," she'd insist, and there I'd be again, giving in to her desires. Years passed quickly. Emily grew up spoiled and selfish, but my love for her was so great that I couldn't impose limits. When she finished high school, she decided she wanted to attend art school. Of course, I supported her decision, as I always had. "Emily, are you sure you want to study art?" I asked, trying to make sure she was making the right choice. "Yes, Mom, I love to draw. You always said I should follow my dreams," she replied, and I knew I couldn't contradict her. It was around that time that Emily met Ryan. He was a handsome young man, but I soon realized he had no ambitions. He didn't work, didn't study, and seemed to be just enjoying life without a care. One day he showed up at our house for the first time. "Hi, I'm Ryan," he said, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you." "I'm Margaret, but you can call me Maggie," I replied, trying to be friendly. Ryan started frequenting our house regularly, and soon I realized he and Emily were getting serious. I tried to talk to her about it. "Emily, I think you should think carefully about this relationship. Ryan doesn't seem like someone who takes life seriously," I said, trying to be gentle. "Oh, Mom, you don't understand. Ryan is different. He makes me happy," she replied, almost furious. I knew it was pointless to continue insisting. Our arguments became more frequent, and Emily was becoming increasingly rebellious. My health began to deteriorate, and I knew I needed to take care of myself. When I received a diagnosis requiring intensive treatment, I had to be hospitalized in a clinic in another city for 3 months. I was worried about Emily, but she seemed more interested in enjoying her freedom without me. Before I left for the clinic, Emily asked me to sign a document. I was so weak and rushed that I didn't even have time to read it. I trusted her and signed. "Mom, please, just sign here. It's for my college," she said. And I, blindly trusting, signed. Little did I know I was signing a power of attorney that gave her the power to do whatever she wanted with my assets. And so, with a mix of apprehension and hope, I left for the clinic, leaving Emily behind, unaware that this would be the start of a major turning point in our lives. I still remember the day I went to the clinic. The sun was rising, and the faint morning light was streaming through the windows of our house, creating a serene atmosphere that contrasted with the storm of emotions inside me. Emily was in the living room, looking anxious. "Mom, are you sure you'll be okay?" she asked, looking at me with a mix of concern and impatience. "I'll be fine, dear. I just need this treatment to get better," I replied, trying to smile to ease the tension. She came over to me with a paper in her hand. "Before you go, you need to sign this. It's a document from my college. They need your signature," she explained, extending the paper and a pen. I was so tired and nervous about the trip that I didn't think twice. I signed quickly and handed it back to her. Done. Now I need to go, I said, trying not to cry. Emily helped me get into the ambulance that would take me to the clinic. As the vehicle drove away, I looked out the window and saw our house disappearing into the distance. Part of me was relieved to finally get treatment, but another part was worried about what might happen in my absence. The first days at the clinic were tough. I missed home, my routine, and especially Emily. I tried to call her as often as I could, but our conversations were short and impersonal. "Hi, Emily, how are things?" I asked during one of the calls. "Everything's fine, Mom. I'm busy with school and Ryan," she replied, sounding distracted. "Okay, dear. Take care and let me know if anything happens," I said, feeling a pang in my heart. The days turned into weeks and I realized something was off. Emily's responses became vaguer and less frequent. I tried not to worry, but it was hard. Then, one afternoon, I received an unexpected visit. My neighbor Helen appeared at the clinic with a serious expression on her face. "Maggie, we need to talk," she said, sitting down beside me. "Helen, what happened?" I asked, already feeling a knot in my stomach. She took a deep breath before responding. "Emily sold the house, Maggie. She put up a for sale sign right after you left, and someone bought it. She got the money and went traveling with Ryan," she explained, her eyes full of concern. I felt the floor drop out from under me. My heart raced, and a wave of despair washed over me. She sold the house? But how? I asked, unable to believe it. "You signed a power of attorney, giving her the power to do that?" Helen replied, squeezing my hand. My legs weakened and I almost fainted from disappointment. How could I have been so naive? How could Emily have done this to me? "Helen, what am I going to do?" I asked on the verge of tears. "We'll fix this, Maggie. I promise. I know a lawyer who can help us. Don't worry, we'll untangle this mess," she guaranteed with determination. The days that followed were pure anguish. My health, already fragile, worsened with stress and sadness. But Helen didn't give up on me. She brought her brother, a lawyer named Thomas, to help me. "Maggie, don't worry, we'll resolve this legally," Thomas said, reviewing the documents. "Thank you, Thomas." "I don't know what I'd do without your help," I replied, trying to hold back tears. As Thomas and Helen worked to undo the damage, I hired a private investigator to locate Emily and Ryan. He quickly found the couple at a luxurious beach hotel, living a life of extravagance and excess. When I saw the photos of them partying, my heart broke. How could my daughter betray my trust so cruelly? However, I knew it was time to act and teach Emily a lesson she would never forget. The police were called, and during a candlelit party on the beach, they were arrested. I imagined the humiliation Emily and Ryan felt when their friends saw them being taken away by the police. It was a hard lesson, but necessary. I received the news of Emily's arrest with a mix of relief and sadness. I hoped this would be the start of a change for the better, both for her and for me. I was in the hospital when I received the news of Emily and Ryan's arrest. My heart ached, but I knew it was necessary. Helen was by my side, holding my hand as I processed everything. "Maggie, we need to think about the next step. Thomas is working on the case, but we need concrete evidence to undo the sale of the house," she said with a serious expression. "I know, Helen, but I can't stop thinking about my Emily." "She must be so scared," I replied, feeling a tightness in my chest. Helen looked at me with compassion. She had always been a loyal friend, and now more than ever I needed her. "We'll bring her back, Maggie, and we'll make her understand what she did," she said, squeezing my hand tightly. While Thomas worked on the legal aspects, we hired a private investigator to follow Emily and Ryan to the beach. We needed evidence to show that they were using the money irresponsibly. The investigator was efficient and managed to get photos and documents that showed the luxurious lifestyle of the couple at the hotel. When I saw the photos of them partying while I was in the hospital, my heart broke. How could my daughter do this to me? The decisive moment came when the police arrested Emily and Ryan during a party on the beach. I imagined the embarrassment she felt being taken away by the police in front of all her friends. It was a hard lesson, but necessary. Helen was by my side when I received the news. "Maggie, they've been arrested. We'll bring them back and resolve this," she said, trying to comfort me. I knew I had to be strong. So I made a call to Thomas. "Thomas, I need you to go to the police station and bail out my daughter. I don't want her to stay there any longer than necessary," I asked, my voice trembling. "Of course, Maggie. I'll take care of it. But we need to talk about what we'll do next," he replied with a firm tone. When Emily and Ryan finally arrived home, they were visibly shaken. Emily couldn't look me in the eye. Ryan was silent, holding her hand as if it were his anchor. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, trying to stay calm. She finally looked up and I saw tears in her eyes. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would happen. I just wanted to live," she said, her voice broken. "Live? Emily? You sold our house. You betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. How could you do this?" I asked, trying to hold back tears. Ryan intervened, trying to justify his actions. "Mrs. Maggie, it was a mistake. We didn't think about the consequences. We were just trying to live," he said, looking genuinely remorseful. "Live? That's not living, Ryan. You were running from reality. And now it's time to face the consequences," I said, firmly. Thanks to Thomas and Helen, we were able to undo the sale of the house. Ryan's father, upon learning of the situation, was devastated. He came to our house, accompanied by Ryan. "Mrs. Maggie, I apologize for what my son did. We'll return the money to the buyer of the house, and Ryan will work at his family's restaurant to pay for it," he said, sincerely. "Thank you. This means a lot to me. But I want Ryan and Emily to understand that they need to change. I want them to learn the value of hard work and responsibility," I replied, feeling a glimmer of hope. Ryan started working as a waiter at his family's restaurant, something he had never done before. Emily, on the other hand, needed to find a job and contribute to household expenses. I made it clear that this was the only condition for her to continue living with me. "Emily, if you want to stay here, you need to work and contribute. I can't sustain you like I used to." "It's time to grow up," I said, firmly. She nodded, still with tears in her eyes. "I understand, Mom. I'll find a job. And I promise to change," she said, determined. Seeing Emily take that step was a relief. I knew the road ahead would be long, but finally I felt like we were on the right path. As she began to look for a job, I prepared myself for the next step of our journey, with the hope that we would finally find peace and understanding. After all the events, my health started to improve gradually. I felt that, in some way, justice being served brought a peace that my body needed. Helen continued to be by my side, helping me every step of the way. Thomas was working hard to ensure that the buyer of our house was compensated and that the property returned to me. He would frequently come to our house to update us on the case progress. "Maggie, we have good news. We were able to cancel the sale of the house. The buyer accepted the refund," said Thomas with a relieved smile. "Ah, Thomas, that's wonderful." "I don't know how to thank you and Helen for everything you've done," I replied, feeling a huge weight lift off my shoulders. "We're happy to help, Maggie. But now we need to focus on making sure Emily and Ryan learn from all this," said Thomas, seriously. Emily was trying to make amends. She started looking for a job and finally landed a position as an assistant at a clothing store in the city center. Ryan, on the other hand, was working as a waiter at his family's restaurant, something he never thought he'd do. "Mom, I got a job," Emily said one day, walking in with a sparkle in her eyes. "That's great, sweetie." "Where is it?" I asked, trying to hide my surprise. "I'll be working as an assistant at a clothing store." "It's not glamorous, but it's a start," she replied, looking determined. "I'm proud of you, Emily. This is a good first step. I hope you take advantage of this opportunity to learn and grow," I said, smiling. Emily nodded, visibly excited. "I will, Mom. I promise I'll do my best," she replied. Emily's first days at work were tough. She had never had to deal with the demands of a job and often came home exhausted and frustrated. "Mom, it's so hard. People can be so rude." "And I'm always tired," she said one night, sitting at the kitchen table. "I know, sweetie. Working is hard, but it's also rewarding. You're learning to appreciate the effort and responsibility," I said, trying to comfort her. "And what about Ryan? How's he handling the job?" I asked, curious. "He's trying, Mom. It's tough for him too, but we're learning together." "I think this is bringing us closer," she said with a small smile. I felt relieved to hear that. I knew the road ahead would be long, but finally I felt like we were on the right path. Our household routine had changed. Emily and Ryan were now contributing to expenses, and our family dynamics were adjusting to this new reality. One day, Helen came to visit, bringing a favorite apple pie that I always loved. "Maggie, you look much better." "I'm so happy to see this change," she said, serving a slice of pie. "I'm feeling better, Helen." "I think seeing Emily and Ryan change has given me a new hope," I replied, taking a slice of pie. Helen smiled and nodded. "They're learning, Maggie. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that teach us the most." "And you've been so strong throughout all this," she said, holding my hand. As the weeks passed, our life began to stabilize. Emily was doing well at work and had started taking night classes to prepare for nursing school. Ryan, although still struggling as a waiter, was trying to change. One day, while we were having dinner, Emily looked at me with a serious expression. "Mom, I want to thank you for everything. I know I made mistakes and hurt you a lot, but I'm trying to change," she said with tears in her eyes. "Emily, the important thing is that you're trying. We all make mistakes, but what matters is what we do after them." "I'm proud of you," I replied, emotional. Ryan, who was sitting next to her, also spoke up. "Mrs. Maggie, I also want to thank you. I know it was tough for you and we're still learning, but I promise I'll do my best to change," he said sincerely. "I appreciate it, Ryan. The important thing is that you're learning and growing, and I'll always be here to support you," I said, smiling. That night, as I went to bed, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew the road ahead would be long and there would be challenges, but finally, I felt like we were on the right path. Emily and Ryan were learning the value of work and responsibility, and our family was more united than ever. I fell asleep with a sense of gratitude, knowing that despite all the difficulties, we were on the right path. And with the support of friends like Helen and Thomas, I knew we could overcome anything. As the days turned into weeks, and then into months, Emily continued to work and study, and I felt proud to see her working so hard. One day, she walked into the room with a nervous smile on her face. "Mom, I need to tell you something," she said, looking both anxious and happy. "What is it, sweetie?" I asked, worried. "I'm pregnant, Mom," she announced, her eyes shining. For a moment, I was speechless. Mixed emotions took over me. On one hand, I was happy for her, but on the other hand, a deep concern began to grow inside me. "Emily, this is wonderful news. But are you ready for this?" I asked, trying to hide my apprehension. She nodded, still smiling. "I think I am, Mom. Ryan and I are working and studying. We'll make it," she said confidently. But at night, when everyone was asleep, my thoughts kept coming back. I wondered what kind of mother Emily would be. Would she repeat the same mistakes I made? Would she spoil her child the same way I spoiled her? The night before the delivery, Emily noticed that I was crying in the living room. She came over concerned. "Mom, why are you crying? Is everything okay?" she asked, sitting down beside me. I tried to wipe away my tears, but they kept falling. "Emily, I'm worried. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. I don't want your child to grow up spoiled and without boundaries. I'm afraid he'll go through what you went through," I confessed, my voice trembling. She held my hand and looked at me with determination. "Mom, I promise. I learned from my mistakes, and I learned from you. I'll raise my child with love and discipline. He won't grow up like I grew up."
"I swear," she said, with a determination I had never seen before. The day of the delivery arrived, and I was by Emily's side in the delivery room. It was a moment of joy and nervousness. When I finally heard the baby's cry, I felt a wave of emotion that made me forget all my worries for a moment. "He's beautiful," I said, smiling at my grandson. "Yes, he is," Emily replied, holding the baby in her arms. But soon we realized that something was different. The doctor told us that the baby was born with a physical disability. He had a problem with his leg that would require special care and possibly surgeries in the future.
Emily and Ryan were visibly shaken, but I knew this would be a test for all of us. "We'll get through this together," I said, holding Emily's hand. "We will, Mom. We'll give him all the love and support he needs," she replied, tears in her eyes. Ryan was also by our side, determined to face the challenge. "He'll have a life full of love and opportunities. We'll do whatever it takes," he said, firmly. The first few months were tough. The baby, whom we named Lucas, required constant care. But amidst all the difficulties, something wonderful happened. Our family came together in a way I never thought possible. Emily and Ryan became dedicated and responsible parents. They learned quickly to care for Lucas, balance work and studies, and meet the baby's needs. Helen continued to be a pillar of support, always present with advice and practical help. "Maggie, you raised a strong and loving daughter. Look at how much she's changed," Helen said one day while helping me care for Lucas. "I know, Helen, and I'm so proud of her," I replied with tears of gratitude in my eyes. The challenges continued, but with the love and support of our family and friends, Lucas grew up surrounded by affection. He faced his difficulties with courage that inspired me every day. And I saw in Emily a dedicated mother, committed to giving her child the best life possible. One day, while we were sitting in the park, watching Lucas play, Emily turned to me. "Mom, I understand what you've always wanted to teach me. I see now how important it is to raise a child with love and boundaries. And I promise that I'll do everything in my power to make sure Lucas has a full and happy life," she said, smiling. I hugged her, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I know you will, sweetie, and I'll always be here to support you," I replied, emotional. As we watched Lucas play, I felt that, despite all the difficulties, our family had found the strength and unity necessary to face any challenge. Lucas grew up surrounded by love and support, facing his challenges with a courage that inspired us every day. Emily and Ryan became dedicated parents, balancing work, studies, and Lucas's special needs with admirable determination. I saw the change I had long desired in them. They learned the value of hard work and responsibility. And above all, they learned the importance of raising a child with love and discipline, avoiding the mistakes of the past. My heart was at peace, knowing that our family's future was in good hands. And although life had presented us with many challenges, we emerged from them stronger and more united than ever. Dear viewer, if you enjoyed our story and felt touched by our journey, I ask that you subscribe to the channel and give a like to not miss the next exciting stories that are to come. Your participation is essential to us, and each subscription and like motivates us to continue sharing stories of overcoming and love. Thank you for following us this far. I hope this story has inspired you just as much as it inspired me to tell it. Stay tuned, because we have many more heartwarming stories to share. Until the next story.